Again, wonderful to have you here with us. I am Laurel Richardson, Director of Community Outreach for the Charcot-Marie-Tooth Association, and we are thrilled you're joining us for our August monthly education meeting. I am so happy and honored to introduce you to Sarah Kesty, who has been serving on our advisory board for years and years, and so graciously shares her time in many different ways. She has written articles for us for the CMTA report. She's a speaker, she's an author, she's an education advocate and disability consultant. And she helps families navigate school support systems, which is a really important area for our younger CMT friends. So I'm going to turn it over to Sarah to further introduce herself and to jump right in to her presentation. And again, this meeting is being recorded and we'll share it in our recordings library on our website in the next week or two. And if you could remain muted until we do Q&A at the end, that would be incredibly helpful to reduce background noise. So thanks again for joining us. And here is Sarah Kesty.
Hey, I'm going to break the rules a little bit, Laurel. So if you have a question that's something that's not clear and you don't want me to move on without clarifying, it's okay to unmute and be like, hey, Sarah, I have a question. I don't mind being interrupted. It's actually my preference. And that way I'm not dusting anybody where you're kind of like, I probably could get this, but I'm missing one piece. Just ask, because chances are there's like 3 or 4 other people who have the same question. So that would be my preference.
Perfect. Yeah. And I'll keep an eye out for hands up, or just awesome. Go ahead and interrupt, guys.
Yeah. Or Laurel, if you see something in the chat and you're like, this would be good for Sarah to answer, then I absolutely can. So we can flex like that. You don't teach for 17 years without being flexible, huh? Huh? Okay. I'm going to share my screen, and you offered to introduce myself more, but let's be real. You're not here to hear about Sarah. You're here to hear about what I want to tell you. So, if you have questions for me, or, want to learn more about my background, my website is myname.com. So sarahkesty.com. And sorry, my computer is being a little goofy. There we go. Or I also have iepomg.com, which is where I house my advocacy and resources. And they both have accompanying blogs and podcasts. So lots of resources available for you, but I want to use our time for this. So there we go. All right. What are we doing today? We are going to talk about what's available at school for students with CMT or students with any sort of physical limitations, fatigue, that kind of thing. We're going to talk about how to play the school game as a parent, how to navigate the support systems, because it can be really tricky and schools aren't always forthcoming with what's available, not usually intentionally, but there are some keywords and processes that, if you know, really speed things up and get things going for your kid. Also, I want to help you make a plan for how to make accommodations worthwhile for your kid, because there's a difference between having a really good plan on paper and having a plan that actually helps your kid at school because she's comfortable using the accommodations, or she has the verbiage to self-advocate. And that's tricky to navigate. So I've got some tools for you there. And then just generally, how do you communicate with the school staff now as school's just starting up, during the year, and then towards the end of the year as well? And like I said before, or if you just joined in, please ask questions when they come to mind, or if it's something that can wait till the end, jot it down so that you've got a strategy to remember, because no question is wrong. It's really nice to have people interact. Okay. So we have a continuum of services for students on IEPs. We have 504 plans too, but I'm going to press pause on those. And in just a moment, I'll help you kind of differentiate between them. But if your child's CMT impacts academics, And what I mean is their ability to write, or their ability to participate in PE, or their ability to, make it through the school day. If there's some academic, not just access, but further than that impact, maybe they need like a OT or a PT, something like that, like occupational therapy or physical therapy during the day to be able to manipulate scissors or open a binder, then that would put you in an IEP. And an IEP is an individual education plan, or individualized educational plan. You'll hear it kind of thrown around. But basically, it's federal law that develops a plan for how, when, how much, what it looks like, all the support for your child at school. And these can happen along a continuum of settings, a continuum of services. And so what we have on the screen here is, coming from the left side, the most restrictive in terms of the most intensive supports, all the way to the least intensive supports that happen in a regular public school. And it's not that one is better or worse, it's just based on student need. So most of the time, unless your child with CMT also has some other, co-presenting disabilities, you won't be looking at full-time special education outside of the home. It's just not necessary. This would be more for students with really intense needs based on like autism or developmental delays, or something that makes communicating, functioning, all that really difficult. And, CMT does not present that way. So home or residential instruction, not usually with CMT. Although I will say, if your child has to have a surgery and or a series of surgeries like I did when I was in school, you may tap into the school for home hospital instruction. And what that means is, even when your child is out for a surgery or a medical something, maybe you're kind of taking a break to figure out some breathing things with CMT, you can contact the school and have them come send a teacher and provide instruction, so that you don't have that gap in instruction during some medical need. So there is that kind of gray area of where you can have some home hospital support, but as far as having like a residential school or a full-time special education placement, not typical with CMT. So then we move on to special day schools. Again, not real typical. This would be where students have really global delays, and this is where they're learning to feed themselves on top of maybe using a augmentative communication board, things like that. Not typically manifestations of CMT. So we're going to scooch to the last two. So I'm sorry, I'm skipping the middle. The middle are special programs on regular public campuses. So this would be like the special day class, where students can mix in with everybody during the day. They have the same lunch time. They're at the same public school, but they have very modified curriculum within a special setting. Again, because CMT doesn't impact intelligence or processing disorders or things like that, it's not typically associated with CMT, although you may end up with a kid with like a couple things going on, which may mean that, yeah, they've got some CMT, but also some significant learning disabilities. So special day class could be an option, but based on CMT alone, no. So we're really only looking at these last two, which would be general education, just regular public fourth grade classroom. And then sometimes with RSP, which stands for Resource Specialist Program. It might also go by Learning Center or Education Specialist. Basically, it's somebody like me on campus who's an access specialist to help sort of knock down the barriers to get into the learning. So someone with CMT may have a hard time holding scissors. So the RSP teacher may either like teach accommodations or kind of help get them started, or they may just pre-cut whatever needs to be cut so that they can just move on past that step. So it's not a cookie cutter solution in terms of what it looks like for everyone. It's based on student need. But the idea is you've kind of got a person there to help you accommodate or provide accommodations for you. And then full inclusion is very similar to that, but all the services happen inside the same classroom. So general 7th grade classrooms where, you know, the kids just go in class to class to class, but there is someone like me on campus who pops in and makes sure everything's good. They're modifying or accommodating whatever needs to be done. And I know right now, probably that's a little bit fuzzy still, because you're like modifying, accommodating. Hang with me. I promise it will make sense in a bit. But what I want you to see is there's a whole spectrum of options. And so as you navigate this process, if you're talking with the school team and they're very stuck on one, you don't have to agree right away. This is when you can reach out to somebody like me and say, hey, is this appropriate? Is this the best way to meet my child's needs? That kind of thing, just so you get a second set of eyes, because let's be real, this is super confusing. It's full of jargon where you're like, I don't even know half the words you're saying. Like, I know the phonemic patterns, but I don't know what you mean. And it's emotional. You've got a lot tied up in this. And so it makes sense that you might need a little bit of support in this, and that's okay. So take your time as you're getting the information from the school, and don't immediately just say yes because you're so thankful for help. Take your time and really step back and say, is this the best? Because sometimes they'll, like, it's kind of like bargaining to buy a car. Sometimes with some school districts, they'll protect their assets a little bit and offer the least they think they can, not with bad intentions, but because although this is federal law, it's only federally funded at about 40%. So states have to make up more than half of the budget. And it's still not written into most financial plans in terms of adequately funding special education. And so we've got this push-pull where they actually call, they have a term for it. It's called special education encroachment. Like, it basically positions anybody asking for special ed supports as stealing from the general ed. And that's really icky. And so when you get pushback from the school district, often it's because they're kind of in that middle position of they're going to be in trouble if they ask for too much, yet they're trying to do the right thing for kids. And so just kind of going in with that perspective, knowing that they might kind of lowball you at first. It's reflective of systemic injustice that we're all trying to improve, and it's not personal, and yet you need to be aware so that you can get the best for your kid. What are you wondering right now? Okay, as you think of things, jump on in. Okay, as promised, I'm going to help you differentiate between 504 plans and IEPs. And what these represent is the two main avenues to get help for your kid at school. Both of them are from the federal government, but they have slight differences, and there's some ways to kind of know what would be best for your kid, but you don't have to know. The process for asking for help is the same that I'm going to teach you in about 2 slides, but kind of having an idea of what you might want as you start is a smart strategy. So let's talk about 504 plans. 504 plans are kind of the school version of what you might get for reasonable accommodations at work. So they are all throughout the school settings, and they can go to college and they can go into the workplace. They come from the Department of Rehabilitation at the federal level, compared to IEPs, which are also federal, but they're from the Department of Education. And so why that matters, like you don't need to know where the funding comes from, but why that matters is that's kind of a shortcut to understand what they cover. So 504 plans are accommodations for access. So anywhere that you might need like a ramp instead of stairs, or assistive technology, maybe scissors that have springs in them to pop back open so that you don't have that burden on your hands, that kind of thing. Whatever it is that's a reasonable accommodation, that falls under 504. It doesn't change how you interact with the learning necessarily. It just gives you access. Versus IEPs, which are educational. So you think kind of accommodations, workplace, 504, IEPs, educational. And this is where, hey, yeah, your CMT maybe impacts your ability to write. And so, because of hand use and all that. So maybe you have occupational therapy to learn different ways to type or write, or maybe you have assistive technology, which is basically any piece of equipment that helps you sort of circumvent a challenge. Whoops. So things like pencil grips are technically assistive technology, all the way up to what I'm using right now on the screen where the captions are happening. That's assistive technology. And technically, most of our devices in school now have this ability where they can capture your voice and turn it into writing for a student. So that's called speech to text. And that's an accommodation that's available through either a 504 or an IEP. And that's also an example of assistive technology. So what makes an IEP different, though, would be you would have somebody specialized, really looking at the educational impact of having a physical disability, rather than just, okay, yeah, we can like give you extra room in the aisles for your chair, or maybe like have assistive zippers for your backpack, whatever it is, kind of access. Versus, okay, this really is like your fatigue makes you need breaks. So I'm going to need to modify your work so that you can learn the essentials, but then also have some ability to honor that your body needs breaks and things like that. So specialized school situation versus accommodations.
Can't do my work. Can't do my work.
What question? What are you wondering right now? And of course, like you can honor that learning's messy and this is a little bit confusing. So if it's still confusing for you, the great news is you don't have to know specifically what to ask for when you ask for help at school. But again, it's kind of nice to know what's available. And I do see one in the chat.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. So both of these, the question was, does the school cover the cost? Yes, absolutely. So part of some of the legislation, and by the way, this is going to blow up your brains, but IDEA law that does the IEPs is not even 50 yet. So if you like time warp backwards 50 years, before that, we didn't have across the board options for kids with disabilities. So it was sink or swim or exclusion. So there's another bit of context for you in terms of when you hit roadblocks, because you will. It's so brand new that it's kind of like the last frontier in civil rights. but legislation has established that this has to be provided for free, and cost cannot be a reason a school district says no. Although, let's be real, there's also a little gray area in there for interpretation from school districts. But in general, they can't say no based on the interpreted expense of something. And absolutely, you do not pay for any of this. Not the assessments, not the specialists, nothing. It all happens during the school day for the most part, unless, like we talked about, there's that home hospital component.
There's another question, Sarah.
So hand grips for holding pencils. Yes. So any equipment that is identified as educationally beneficial, and I'm emphasizing that because there is some parts of the law that says, is there educational benefit to this? So if you wanted like a key phrase to throw in to say, I know my stuff, there's one of them. But anything that is deemed necessary for access for your child will be covered by the school district. Sometimes that means that it has to stay at school. Like I've had slant boards where you can kind of write at an angle, and that can be really helpful. And they're just really cumbersome and big, so they don't go back and forth. But a lot of the times, if the student's required to do homework and it's necessary for homework, then it can go back and forth. It just stays property of the school.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
My son currently has an IUP, and 2 years ago before COVID, he needed some sort of wobbly chair or something. And what if the school keeps telling you, no, 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 no? Well, eventually what happened was I purchased the chair and took it to school.
Okay.
But what happens if they keep telling you no?
You have recourse. So there's lots of different ways you can go. So technically, and this is again where like this like kind of young baby law is frustrating for us, right? Because we're still sort of pioneers on this civil rights front. If the school can prove that your child can still learn at like the mid-level compared to his peers without the service or the technology, they have some leg to stand on, so to speak, legally, but it's still very interpretive. So if you're advocating and they're not meeting your needs, then there's levels you can go up in terms of reaching to the district level special education coordinators or program specialists, or then you can go to the county or ask for mediation. So there's a whole process of options if you do hit that dispute area, because we do sometimes, and you do have recourse, but also sometimes, like you said, Jaya, like, okay, well, I don't want my kid to be lingering for months while these people drag it out. I'm just going to get you the dang chair and suck it up. But then you kind of feel like you lost. So I absolutely understand what you're saying. As a teacher, I did that loads of times where I was just like, fine, I'll just buy it myself because the school district's not going to say yes to me. And I know this kid needs it. Fine, suck it up. But then again, you know, that helped perpetuate the problem because I was closing the gaps that needed to be exposed. So it's paradoxical, and we don't want our kids to be sort of casualties in this process. So I think it's probably both, like you did. It's getting the need met now and then seeking recourse to maybe be reimbursed or things like that. Sorry, I wish that was a better answer, but I'll tell you the truth. That's what I do. Great question. And then just at the bottom, SST, if your school says, hey, let's have an SST, that's a student study team. That does not make a plan necessarily, but that's a first step. So if you reach out and say, hey, I need a meeting, and they say, okay, we'll have an SST, they're not saying no. They're just saying this is step 0 before we decide 504 or IEP. And then there are resources on my website, like I mentioned before, iepomg.com. There's loads of resources there for you. Okay. We talked a little bit about what both 504s and IEPs have in common. They both can have accommodations, which are small changes in the way students receive information, process information, or show their learning. So small changes on like the front end, middle end, or back end, or modifications which change the learning. So an example of an accommodation would be like the ability to speak your answer instead of having to write it out, or the opportunity to type instead of handwriting. Those kind of things are accommodations. You're still accomplishing the writing, it's just taken a different route. Versus a modification would be, okay, the class got a 5-paragraph essay. We're going to have you do 3 because we know the fatigue is so real. We're changing what you're producing significantly enough that it's actually changed. Usually schools prefer accommodations because modifications have, like, in some states, different codes, and then the schools get tracked for discriminatory practices. And there's all kinds of, like, if they push against you and like, we don't want modifications, again, it's not personal, it's systemic. And that doesn't mean that you don't advocate. It just means that be prepared for more resistance with that than with accommodations. Another thing that, oh, good. I see your question, Marlene. I'm going to jump in just a sec. Another thing that I want to empower you with is when you're advocating, no matter 504, IEP, if you're just starting, if you're trying to fix it, emphasizing this significant impairment is really important. So using that particular verbiage. So when schools decide if they're going to open up a 504 or test for an IEP, they need to be assured that there's a significant impairment. And for 504 plans, remember we talked about kind of access and workplace. For 504 plans, the impairment has to be across major life functions. So getting dressed, feeding yourself, transportation, independence, that's pretty broad. Homework back and forth to school, all those kind of things, focusing in class, that kind of stuff would be a major life situation where you'd have to say, yes, this really impacts my child. If you're looking more at the 50 or the IEP, that would be educationally impactful. So this significantly impairs my child's ability to write the full amount or move class to class or manipulate classroom items. This is scissors, by the way. And that kind of thing. So either way, you've just, and this is the bummer, everybody, because you're going to have to emphasize the need to the point where it feels a little uncomfortable. Like, I'm trash talking my child. I love this kid. I champion them. Like, I never focus this hard on the deficits. And yet when you're talking with the school and setting things up, don't mince words. In fact, kind of go heavy on the emphasis, because that's your door opener. And then your kid doesn't have to see what you're saying on this end of the advocacy. Just get it there to really have them understand what CMT does with your kid. Okay, that's that. I saw the question real quick about Catholic schools. So private schools do not have to follow IEPs because they don't receive federal funding. And that's a tricky bummer moment right there. So public schools have to, public charter schools have to, Private schools can sometimes develop their own version of an IEP, but because you're there by choice, they don't necessarily have to provide the full breadth of services and assistive technology and things like that. Sometimes they choose to kind of give them that like competitive edge because, hello, you're paying for it, but it varies widely. That was a great question.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so I just want to help differentiate before we get into the process one more time. If you don't feel like your kid needs specialized services, they don't need an access specialist necessarily, just like a couple small changes on campus and we're good to go, 504 plan's what you need. If you're like, yeah, my kid might need to learn how to use assistive technology or have an OT teach them different ways to manipulate classroom items, or maybe adaptive PE is more their jam, then that would be an IEP. Not better or worse, just different. I will say IEPs have more teeth in terms of enforcement because they are under the educational component of the law versus the 504s are a little bit more like it says periodic review, but it doesn't say how often, versus IEPs, it's very spelled out and school districts get in trouble if they don't do it annually, things like that. So if you're on the fence, shoot for an IEP and see what happens. But if a 504 is perfect, then that's okay. Okay, Derek, you say, but we choose to because it's the right thing to do. Oh, the Catholic school?
Private school reference.
Private school.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
And it's one of the reasons we actually started up was I was taught by a school district that the difference between a 504 and an IEP is an IEP we are required to do. A 504 is if we want to do it.
Got it.
That was part of this district training.
Holy cow. Wow. Yeah. See, and there you go. There's the difference. So you're right. IEPs definitely have more teeth. 504s aren't a choice though. That's so wild that you got trained like that, huh? Yeah. But it just shows you. I mean, we're pioneers on this front because it's not well understood, and it's still seen as encroaching. It's still seen as extra. Because if you think about it, public schools were developed for like a kid with no outside of the norm needs in mind and progressed for years. And they actually had desegregated schools based on like melanin in your skin earlier than they did for people like us that had some different disabilities. So we're still sort of additional in people's minds, and that's how it manifests in terms of 504s if you get to it. But Derek, that's also the opportunity where, you reach out to CMTA and they can send your question on to me and I can kind of help guide you with verbiage and stuff to get going, because yeah, that's where we're stronger together, right? Okay, so I've talked a lot about accommodations, those small changes that can make a big difference at school. So what could they look like? Very first thing you got to know is they are individualized. So it's kind of like this detective process where you're like, okay, how does CMT show up for you at school? And what could make that better? And again, like I said before, we're considering access to learning, how you get your learning, and how you show your learning. I would definitely emphasize whatever accommodations you choose, you really think about the grading component too, so that your child's not knocked if they can't run the mile. Everybody, when I was in school, because it was fair to make everyone do the same thing, they would make me do the mile, but let's be real, I couldn't run the mile. So I would start off kind of jogging, and then I'd be limping by the end, and they made all 6th graders, so all like 65 kids, line up on the side of the grass and watch me finish. And that was a weekly occurrence. I know. I could see some of your faces. You're all grimacing like, ah. Okay. So if you're like, hey, I don't know if she understands, let's just put that behind us. Yes, I do. But that's also what drives me in, you know, like the policy advocacy that I'm doing, and, you know, why I really believe so much in the mission of the CMTA, and I'm on the advisory board and all that. So, but had I had a better plan, and this is not to throw shade on my mom, she just didn't know, or my dad, you know, kind of facilitating my plan. Had I had a better plan, my modification might have been, she walks like a half lap, or well, I guess you can't walk a half because then you got to come back. So maybe you walk one lap and you're done, right? And that's my modification. That's okay. But had I not run the whole thing, I would have been docked for my grade. So as you're looking for accommodations, start thinking about, is my kid losing points for handwriting? Are they being knocked participation points because they're late, because it takes them a long time to get in the classroom? Things like that are important to consider as well. Okay, I know it's super annoying when people read from their slides, so I'm going to be quiet for a sec so you can check these, and then you let me know what questions you have about some of those examples.
Sarah, I have a question.
Yeah.
What if your child doesn't want any accommodations? What if they're saying, no, 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 please don't draw attention to me. I just want to try to do it like everybody else, but you know they need an accommodation. How do you navigate that scenario?
You are so psychic, Laurel. I'm going to say, I'm going to tell you in a minute.
Okay, perfect.
I have a whole slide, girlfriend.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, and I'm imagine these are kind of starting to make sense. See, I told you it would start fuzzy and then we'd get clear. The access component is just thinking about, you know, navigating the classroom. It could be something as stealth as nobody knows, but the teacher's like hanging backpacks in a different space this year, so they're not on the floor as like a trip hazard. That could be an accommodation where your kid has to do nothing. It's just kind of like up-leveling the teacher's practices to make the trip hazards a little bit less, that kind of thing. And by the way, Laurel, I was that kid.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. No way. You want to be like unique and wonderful, and also nobody look at me. I'm just the same.
Yes, exactly.
Right? Okay. So the process for either one is the very same. You're going to request support. And again, if you don't know, just say, hey, I just found out, or my child is a child with Charcot-Marie-Tooth. It impacts him in XYZ way. Can we please have a meeting at school to talk about services? You're good. You don't have to necessarily like ask for the menu item yet. The school they have child find laws that propel them, like they must, propel's not the right word. They must look for kids with disabilities and find the ways to serve them. So they're aware that it's their job. So you just email or put it in writing with the date on it. And then as a little brain hack for yourself, they have 15 days to reply to your request, and go ahead and put a schedule reminder in whatever schedule system you use about 10 days out so that you remember to follow up just in case. After that, the school will say, okay, yeah, we're going to have a meeting. We're going to invite the teacher, probably the school psychologist. And then that's where you would bring medical documentation of CMT, any other co-occurring situations. This is where you would start brainstorming like, okay, here's how CMT shows up for my kid. Here are some of the things that might match up in terms of accommodations, services, assistive technology. And then this is where we start being a little bit recognizing our pioneer roles in this civil rights movement, in saying, team, I love the effort. Thank you so much for all your good ideas. And because this is so important, I'm going to take tonight to sleep on it before I sign. And to be honest, some of the teachers are going to go, because they're so used to just handing parents papers and parents just sign because they're like, okay, whatever you say. But that's how we stay stagnant. And that's how we end up with like plans for our kids. So take it home. You can scan it and send it to me and be like, does this look good? That kind of thing, have a second set of eyes on it so that you have the chance before it's set to get some changes in, because it's a little bit easier before the paint's dried. Okay. If the school says, yes, we would like to look into an IEP, they may open an assessment. And what that means is they're going to have observations. They're going to have papers for you to fill out. They're going to maybe have the occupational therapist, the physical therapist, potentially speech therapist if there's some breathing and like breath control associated with your child's CMT, whatever it is. Mobility specialist, if your kid happens to like be in a wheelchair or on crutches, something like that. Those people have 60 days to test, formulate their reports, and then review it with you. And that's where they would come up with an IEP. So again, if you think just those accommodations are like low level chill, that's probably all you need. You may end right here with the at the SST, the student study team, developing the 504 plan. See why this is so tricky. And if you've got your 504 set and you're happy with it, you can be done. But if you wanted to go the IEP route, there's a couple more steps in terms of gathering data and then developing the plan. Okay, whether you end up with a 504 or an IEP, the last steps would be kind of watching for the actualization of the plan, because oftentimes, I think, Derek, you were speaking to it, oftentimes the plans sort of stay in theoretical zone and don't actualize in the classroom. Maybe the teacher's like, it doesn't really look like they need it. Like, it should not be subjective. And yet the reality is it very much is. And because CMT is invisible, similar to like dyslexia or ADHD, like you can't see my nerves, just like you can't see somebody's brain. Sometimes people will just do that very basic look and be like, there's nothing wrong with you. You don't need this. And so teachers are human. There still is some miscommunication, misunderstanding there. So monitor, don't just take it on faith that, oh yeah, they wrote this plan, it's going to happen. Be the parents like, hey, how are your accommodations going? What's going on? Or ask maybe when you see them at parent teacher conferences. And then lastly, just in terms of keeping up with review and stuff, IEPs have to be reviewed every year. They have to be reassessed every 3 years. It's called a triennial. And 504s, again, like we were talking about, a little bit less clear, a little bit more nebulous. So it says periodic review, but most schools interpret that as about yearly. But honestly, it takes like a pain teacher like me on campus to be like, hey, we need to look at so-and-so's 504. And then the admin's like, okay. So if that's the situation you land in, again, not personal, just be prepared to say, my kid has a 504, I'd like to review it. Okay, Laurel, see, told you. So, and I know we're kind of running long in terms of content versus questions, but I think if that works for you guys, is that okay, Laurel?
That's perfect. Let's go.
Hi, Sarah, it's Marlene. Can I just ask a question? Because I think I missed in the very beginning. Are you having these slides somewhere that I could see them? And this on, like if my daughter or somebody else wanted to listen to this?
Yeah, we're recording it and it'll be up on the CMT website in a couple of days.
Sorry, because I think I missed that in the beginning. Thank you.
No, don't apologize. That was a great question. And chances are probably other people were wondering it too, but you were just brave enough to ask.
Sorry. Thank you. Didn't mean
Don't
to
be
interrupt.
sorry. It's okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So Sarah back in the day was not cool saying CMT. Like if my mom said it, I froze like a zombie and gave her the look that like if my eyes could have lasered her in half, they would have. Like, don't you even mention that thing? Like I didn't know how to spell it until I was a teenager because I refused to look at things about it. No joke. I was probably 20, I think I was 28 when I reached out to CMTA because I wrote a book for children called Everyone Has Something. And I put my real life x-ray in it. I'm looking around. I'm the worst self-promoter. I should have it right here, but I don't. But I finally reached out to CMTA, and through that process, I started meeting other people with CMT. Like I was almost 30 when I finally was like, okay, this is me. I'm okay with it. And it took several years to test out telling people, like it was this dark secret, like it was this whole coming out process. So if you're chilling with an 11-year-old right now who is in that space, there's nothing wrong. You're not doing anything wrong as a parent. They're not doing anything wrong as a human. This is emotional. And because it's invisible, it's also really hard to kind of like rectify and make sense of in your own brain. So keep in mind that this is a process. And if your child's not ready to own it, there are some sneaky ways to still get them the support at school without having to like say the word disability. Because let's be real, that's loaded. Special education is loaded. These words have a lot of connotation, and we can ditch them and still have the same results. So I'm going to skip down a couple bullets because that really relates. If your child's not ready to say like, hey, I have a disability or I have a neuromuscular disease, like don't make them. You can empower them with a very depersonalized language of I have a body that needs, or sometimes it helps me to. Or like I've noticed myself even using this in turn, like I coach kids to use it, but sometimes when I'm tired, my feet get floppy. And it's very objective. It's also very true, but it's a really powerful way to like Sarah the human is doing her best. Sarah, I almost made myself cry. Woo! Sarah the human isn't choosing this. Dang it. I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry.
That was so weird.
We've all been
45
there.
years for you, Derek. Okay, thank you. I'm going to, my face is leaking.
That's all right.
Good gravy.
You're in good company.
Right? Okay.
Mhm.
Did not expect that. See, still fresh. I guess it's only been like what, 9 years since I've been cool with it. So there's still bumps in the road. I am so sorry. Oh my goodness.
Don't be sorry.
Okay. How to help your kid be cool with it. I would say adopt the practice of nothing about me without me, which means even if it's a little bit tricky and even if you have to choose your words carefully in terms of not saying Charcot-Marie-Tooth or not saying disability, just saying like, your nerve thing, kind of depersonalizing it, taking away some of that like electric charge to it. Just saying, hey, we're going to talk about what school can look like. Jump in. Really try to have that process, because what keeping it separate from your child does is it serves to make it bad. It serves to make it mysterious. I had a lot of times where my parents would go into meetings or doctors would talk about me in front of me. And that made me feel like there must be something so wrong that they can't even tell me. Kids know. So having that invitation where they can participate is important, and it grows as they grow. So maybe it's they sit in for a little bit of their own meeting or they help you plan it. And then eventually, in high school, they're running their own meetings. You can also rehearse at home. So you can kind of go through what the meeting might feel like. You might hear your doctor say, you might hear your teacher say, or what are some things that you want to share at the meeting? And if you wanted to help them practice using accommodations, this is where you could say, like, hey, let's practice. Like, what happens if a kid asks you why you have that pencil grip? And then this is where you can kind of get fun and have your kid practice like, or you're jealous or something like that. So they kind of feel more comfortable and already have it like loaded in their brain. So it comes out automatically, because what we don't want to do is just tell them and kind of belittle the situation to where it's like, oh, you'll be fine. Just tell them it's your pencil grip. And then they go to school and the kid's like, what's that? And they crumble because it's embarrassing. That makes your kid end up bully food. We don't want that. So instead, we empower them with like quick, snappy, can be like slightly rude, or at least kind of funny or sarcastic, whatever you're comfortable with. Like, wouldn't you like to know? Or something like that to just kind of shut it down, keep the emotions real flat. That will make people not pick on them because they're like, oh, this isn't any fun. And then again, help your kid reflect when things go right. So we always say, learn from your mistakes, but there's a lot more power in learning from when things go right. So like, hey, you haven't had falls in a couple weeks. What's going right? Like, oh, I'm wearing better shoes. All right. Or, like, it seems like your pain's been a little bit less. What's going on? Oh, well, I'm finally sitting down and icing, or I figured out that if I elevate at lunch, it makes a difference, food for thought. You can use that with your own brain too. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I cried. I am so sorry. Ha! Aw, you guys are sweet. I see the sweet messages. Thank you. I was hoping they were questions so I could focus on something else. Okay. Two things before we do Q&A. I made this little map for you for kind of navigating throughout the school year. Also, just last week, I did a webinar for people with disabilities and kids with disabilities, sort of writing letters to the school to kind of introduce themselves and say, here's what I need. It's geared a little bit more towards people with ADHD because that's where most of my training and emphasis has been in terms of my experience, but there's definitely value in it for you. So it's all free. I saved all the resources in a Google Drive. So bit.ly/B2S, like back to school letter, has the video, the example letter, and a couple other resources for you. If you're raising a child who is ready for that level of self-advocacy, great option. If not, you're not failing as a parent. They're not failing as a human. They're just not ready. And that's okay too. Okay. And obviously, as you saw with me, it's a process of self-acceptance, and you think you got it, and then you find a little weak spot. Okay. So that's the before school love note. The idea is either from you as a parent or from your child as a self-advocate, you hit up the school team before the beginning of the school year to say, hey, yo, you're going to love this kid. And here's what makes this kid super successful in class. Because it's faulty logic, but teachers don't get the 504s or the IEPs until several weeks into the school year. And by then, if your kid hasn't like normalized using accommodations, if all of a sudden in October, the teacher's like, oh crap, Jonathan, I forgot you're supposed to have extra time on tests. I just found out. It's mortifying versus having it just be something that's just rolled out from the beginning. Like, okay, Jonathan, Rosie, Beyonce, you guys get to stay over here. I don't know why I picked Beyonce. You guys get to go over here, or hey, some of you get your reading on audio. Here's so-and-so come get it, whatever it is, just kind of having it be how it rolls out makes a difference. And you are that difference for your kid, or your kid is self-advocating. So having that information to the teacher early can help. Plus, endearing the teacher to your kid's struggles immediately gets them on team kid, so that when your kid has like maybe an emotional moment or appears to be lazy, the teacher's going to assume best intentions, and maybe it's CMT related versus, well, I didn't know, so I just thought your kid was faking it. So we've got to kind of tap into your teacher narrative early, so that when you hit bumps in the road, you can lean into it. Like, that's an example of CMT. Plus, if you put a little bit of chocolate with the note or really thank them, there's like hidden bonus points, because teaching is subjective. So that's the frame perspectives early. And then, yeah, I'm going to check the questions. Oh, good. Thanks, guys. Okay. All right. There's my info, and I'm ready for your questions. If we still have time. Sorry, Laurel, I blabbed.
Oh, no, it's fantastic. Incredible information. One thing I want to throw in that was really helpful for me, and it doesn't have to do with kids in school advocating, but role playing. So I used to volunteer at my kids' school. And during that time, I went from not wearing AFOs to wearing AFOs, but I would practice with my kids at home for them to answer questions about my AFOs, because I wasn't going to hide them. And it was so incredibly helpful. So I think anytime you can use role play and practice at home as a tool for success, I just wanted to put in my 2 cents about that. It's wonderful.
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to take us back to our Brady Bunch, if that's okay to end your slides, Sarah.
Oh, yeah, here.
And then we can all be together for Q&A. If we need to reference them again, we certainly can. But let's just open it up. You can raise your hand, you can unmute and start talking. The slides were so thorough. Oh my gosh, I learned a ton. Any questions?
Yes, I was wondering if you could tell me what a good statement would be if your child is asked about her braces and why she wears them, especially at school.
How old is she?
13.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So maybe I have legs and need braces.
Okay. Yeah, it seems to bother her a lot, and therefore I'm seeing that she does not want to wear them, which
Oh,
is
totally.
it's not a good situation. And I keep trying them. Her mother passed away 2.5 years ago. So I'm trying to encourage her as much as I can to wear them, and just to accept that she needs them, and that the other children that are looking at her are not necessarily thinking bad things about her, but just they're curious.
Totally. That makes a lot of sense. And that it's such a tricky age. So going into 8th grade?
7th.
Going into 7th. Okay. Another part of it is that when you are your real self, your people are drawn to you. So it is an opportunity to kind of explore for her, like, yes, most people are curious, but if you do bump into those judgmental people, did you really want them in your circle anyway? And again, that's coming from an adult. It would have been hard for me to hear that as a child, but with some questioning of like, if a person's going to make fun of you like that, what kind of person do you think they are? And just leave it there. Don't tell her what to think after that. It can kind of start the wheels spinning in terms of like, oh yeah, you're right. I don't really need that girl in my life anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
I-
she just She just had major surgery, so on her knee, so that's gonna delay her going to school, and she's gonna be having to do school on computer and having teachers come in, so
Got it. Yeah. And yeah, Eric had a good idea. Like, I need braces for walking.
right.
You know, just whatever she's comfortable with. And the thing is, right now, we can all speculate as adults, but this is where we enlist her and say, what are you comfortable saying? Let's try out some things. What feels good?
Well,
I
thank
would
you.
say you're welcome. The shorter, the better, though. Something that can just be like real automatic, maybe even a little bit spunky. That'll
Okay.
shut it down pretty quick.
Middle school is so hard, and she probably would not want to do this. I know I wouldn't, but we can, if she ever wants to do a presentation, or if any of your children ever want to do a quick 10-minute presentation to their classes about what CMT is, that can be really helpful. And I can send you little blue and orange rubber bracelets that they can hand out to their classmates. But the younger you do that, the easier it is. But just know that that's an option too, where we can send you what is CMT brochures and little bracelets to hand out that it might be helpful to educate the class. But
Okay, that's a good idea too. Thank you.
And you know, if you wanted some, I wish I had an older, like I wish I had me at 39, talk to me at 13. So if you want, just email me, and maybe we can set up time. Like, what I do for my job now is disability coaching. So here, I'm putting my email in the chat if you want your granddaughter to connect with me.
Hi, this is Marlene too. I just want to say the same thing. I'm a grandmom raising my granddaughter too. Savannah is also diagnosed with ADHD and she goes to Catholic school. So I have also a daughter with Down syndrome who's 33. So I've kind of fought through things for her all her life. But in Catholic school, I feel like I'm not able to. I've asked them to meet me before school, school starts. Still didn't get an answer from them yet. So, and I don't know, what's the greatest way to talk to them. They've been pretty good, but like now that she's starting 5th grade, but she's moving up to the next level, things are going to be a lot different for her. So she is the same way. She doesn't want to ask for accommodations. She doesn't want anybody to help her with anything. But like what at 5th grade, starting to work on computers more, and she's going to be going up 2 sets of steps instead of 1 set of steps, and up and down a lot more. To talk to her. She has no friends I've met really with CMT or anybody that she can talk to herself. And what to say in the classroom also. I think most of her friends kind of know, but don't really know. And she doesn't really know how to explain it. And I don't want to go in and explain it. So that would be helpful too, to, whatever you send to that other grandmom too would be awesome.
Yeah, will you reach out to me?
Sure, I would.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can't guarantee that this brain will remember. It is pretty
Okay.
full.
And that was a lot. But this is the nicest meeting I've been at. Thank you.
Oh, good. Molly, you have your hand up, yeah?
Yep. Okay. I'm Michelle. Molly's my daughter. It's set up
Oh.
for her.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say something before about being in middle school and her being embarrassed. A lot, like I find that having her be able to express herself, like they have Posca paint pens, like she can fix her braces, like put her own personality into them. And I find that has a lot of
Vienna.
empowerment and things like
You're
that
doing.
when they can stylize themselves. Because
Great.
like my daughter can't change her socks because I buy the special ones for her braces. So now she wears 2 different color socks because they're not fun socks, but she's finding her own, and stuff like that really helps with them feeling better around kids, to not feel as, it really makes them feel more empowered dealing with the situation.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a question. I just wanted to say that because I know that helps my daughter. It makes her feel better she feels fancy and strong and stuff like that.
Fancy and strong. I'm gonna
Yeah.
test
Cool.
those out this weekend. I like it.
She's 7, so it's been since birth, so it's a little different. So I've known since she was, growing, since she was 2.5 when we got her diagnosis. my question is, she's going to second grade, and because of COVID, I had her home. So she hasn't been in the building yet. And after hearing all of these things and some of the other stuff I read, I don't know if she's actually going to be able to physically handle the day. I'm not sure what to do about that, because even yesterday she was exhausted, tired, hot mess after like 1 hour when we were outside.
Mm-hmm.
And are there resources that I could tap into for them for like extra supports for at-home learning? Because virtual, they had changed it again for my school district, that it's back to being regular C3, I think they called it, where they do everything themselves and there's no actual additional support, that there's like one teacher looking after the kids online.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any resources I could do where they could like, where she'd be able to like go into the school for extra support, or have
Is she on an IEP?
someone? She does have an IEP,
So
because
call an
it's set up
IEP.
for her for like elevators and like other things, but she's never had to use her IEP in school. She's never physically been in school except for literally a couple months in like preschool before COVID happened.
Mhm.
So
I would say,
I don't know what to do. I'm afraid for her to be at school,
right. Yeah.
like
And that, I mean,
being able to do it.
all of
Because
us will
home
have that
learning,
learning
she had a
curve.
hard time, and I would help her with tests and things like that, like because she would just get so tired, and that was at home, very relaxed. So are there any resources like that if I were
Yeah.
to try to keep her at home that I could try to do with the school?
So that's where you would jump in with the home hospital option and just say, hey, I might ask for a modified day. So that means maybe she goes just in the morning for like reading and math. And then in the afternoon, she may do some hybrid learning where she does online stuff. Maybe that's where you have a teacher come in for the afternoons after school to check in sort of as like a home hospital thing. You have options in terms of what it can look like based on fatigue, but you've got to get the meeting on the books as soon as possible.
Okay, I put your information down to like reach out. I just wasn't sure, because listening to everybody talk and your stuff, and I'm just like, I don't know if she can do it.
She can. It just may look different, and it may take a couple iterations before you find the right blend of at school versus rest time versus home time, and then kind of help her like build up that stamina.
Okay, so I'm fairly new to this. My son just got diagnosed with the CMT, and I myself. So I know the struggles I have, but I don't really know the struggles he's having at school. So I have an upcoming IEP meeting. I just don't know what exactly to ask for. I know yesterday my son was talking about he's trying to work on his photographic memory because he can't write everything down. I know when we go on walking trails, he's stumbling and stuff, but like I said, I don't know what he's struggling with at school, so I don't know what to help him with.
I was like starting to take notes while you were saying that. How old is your son?
He just turned 11. He's in 6th grade. He's autistic. He has ADHD and dyslexia. So we got a handful of wonderful things in our life with him.
You've got a range of neurodiversity, yeah?
Yes. So
Yeah, makes sense. You touched on something that could be a really great accommodation in terms of note-taking assistance. That's something that you can drop into a 504 or an IEP. And what that can look like is he gets a chance to take a photo of the board. He can get a copy of teacher notes. He could have a peer take notes on that magic paper that's like carbon copy, and then he gets one copy, basically to alleviate the note-taking stress and allow him to learn. That's a great example of an accommodation for CMT and ADHD.
oh wow.
Isn't that cool? And that kind of stuff can actually happen in college too. So sometimes people worry about like, is this cheating? Like, am I having an unfair advantage? Which, like, first of all, forget you. But second of all, no, like most of this stuff goes to college anyway. So
Okay. That's a good one. Okay.
and then, you know, if he does have to transition between classes, that would be the opportunity to say like, hey, he may need a little bit extra time, or maybe let him scoot out of the door while the hallways are empty so that he's not like navigating. Like, I know when I hurt, I'm really wobbly and it doesn't take much to knock me down. So
That's him.
having the ability to maybe cruise through the halls before everybody gets out there could make the difference for him. You know,
Oh.
basically sort of thinking like a detective, where you're kind of like lining up the demands of school, maybe lining up where like the weak spots might be for him, and then what could make a difference. And actually really taking it down to that concrete level of planning can be huge, because then you don't miss as much.
So I have a question. He does struggle with his legs a lot. Like I said, we're new to this, but with him sitting in a chair all day, do you think he would be able to elevate it? Will elevation help him with his legs?
That's probably more medical. I can tell you just from my own personal experience, yes, because getting it above my heart helps with swelling. So my feet, especially my right foot's had 15 surgeries, like they hurt by the end of the day, and having them up can make a big difference. But it would all be dependent, and that's where the individual part of the IEP really you can lean into.
Okay. Okay, well, at least I have some things I can talk to them about.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And you know, you can actually Google accommodations for ADHD, accommodations for autism, accommodations for physical disabilities. And there's loads of good lists there. So you don't have to be like, I'm going to pull these all from the depths of my brain. Like, no way. Use some resources. They're there. And I'm here too.
Okay. I'll definitely do that. I appreciate it.
Of course. Good questions.
Thank you.
Really good questions. And just a reminder for our new friends who are just finding the CMTA, if you have a new diagnosis, we do have a wonderful youth program and a camp just for kids who have CMT, so that if your children are not meeting any other kids with CMT, camp once a year is a wonderful time for them to connect and have a regular summer camp experience. But it's all kids who have CMT, and it is truly the most fun week of the year. And then also our youth programs, which is led by Jonah Berger. You can connect with other youth, other families. There's a young adults group now, and we have several social media platforms just for the youth. So please don't ever feel like you're alone. Reach out and we can get you connected. Sarah, that was incredibly informative. I learned so much, and I'm thrilled we will have this recording. I want to thank you for your time. You are so generous with your time and sharing your talents with us. So thank you so much. And if anyone has any follow-up questions and you lost Sarah's email, don't hesitate to reach out to me. You guys should all have my email address because I sent the reminder out. Wonderful. Thanks, everyone, and have a great weekend. And Sarah Kesty, thank you for being such a gift to all of us.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, guys. Thank you for being here. It means a lot.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.